think I got it. Let's see. 1 second.
Okay.
Come on, what's going on? Oh, this thing can be really frustrating because it should be absolutely simple and it's not. And you know, I've been doing this for many years, so I never have this with other systems, but with Zoom, it happens all the time. It
Wow.
just won't sort of do anything, and I had to keep pressing buttons until it sort of wakes up. Come on. Yeah, no, it's gone absolutely crazy. Oh, come on. Oh, well, I'm gonna have to start it again. Drat.
I could see a lot of people benefiting from this Android class. Is
Say
there
again?
one for, is there one of these classes for iPhones?
Yes, yes, that was on Monday.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Well, I'm going to stop sharing and try start it again.
Okay.
Hang on. I gotta do something different. Just hang on. This is the worst. I'm sorry. Normally it works quite quickly. They keep making changes because they're trying to keep up with people. And every time they make a change, it doesn't work.
Got it.
Or it doesn't work for me. What the heck is it doing? Oh man, this is ridiculous. It's completely got itself lost and now it's locked out my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, that's better. Now I'm going to go back to there. Do you see that?
I don't see anything except you.
Huh. Well, you shouldn't be seeing me. It should be sharing my screen, and it's not.
Oh, let's see. Nope, not yet. Well, it's a good thing that it's recording, so whatever.
It's recording. I have no idea what it's recording. It's just messing around. It's using the wrong screen. It's completely got messed up.
So do we want to log off and then log back in?
No, it's not you.
Oh, okay.
It's Zoom.
Okay.
Zoom it's not ready for prime time, and it's not their fault because they didn't expect to have tens of millions of people coming online.
Yeah, all at once, right?
All at once. Yeah, they were a little company. They were actually a very small company. I
Oh,
probably used them once.
oh, wow.
Yeah, and suddenly, kazoom, their
Oh,
business
wow.
went out of sight. Okay, so now, drat, come on. Okay, let's start there now. I just don't understand. Come on, man. What the heck? Oh, it's frustrating me. It's going on. I have multiple screens. So it's suddenly, Zoom has decided in its own right that it's only going to use my second screen and not my primary screen.
Oh, I've had that happen before, and I've had to
Cannot
move
stop it.
everything over to my main monitor for me to be able to share the screen and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It would not accept it on my
Okay,
There you go.
can you see that now?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. I'm going to leave my other screen off just a moment. Got a message from Sharita. Okay, I had a reply to Sharita at Benson. Okay, so here we go. Sorry about all of that. Okay, so here we go. This is the introductory course on Android phones and tablets. I'm mostly going to use the phone, but the tablet is exactly the same. Do you have a phone or a tablet?
I have a phone.
Okay, good. Okay, so that it won't make a lot of difference. Okay, so we're going to talk about what is Android and a whole lot of other things. I'll skip ahead. Oh, let me go back just. I want you to, I should put a slide in here. Can you see my email address at the bottom?
Yes, I can.
Write that down. Make sure you spell my long last name correctly, otherwise it won't reach me. And then anytime after today, after the course, you can send me an email at that address. Just say, please send me the slides for the Android course. And all of this material that I'm showing you, you will get the actual slides. So you can print them out, you can use them for review and so on.
Okay.
Good.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, so the first question is, what is Android? Android is always, you'll probably see in all the documentation, you see this little symbol in the top right-hand corner, sort of looks like a little robot. That's Android. And basically, what I'm going to say here is that every piece of device, every computer, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop, or even a mainframe computer, a big computer, it needs some basic software to make it work. Otherwise, it's just, paperweight. Just like your motor car, without the engine, not much you can do with it. So the operating system, as they call it, the software that runs the system, the operating system, or abbreviated to OS, is the soul of the computer. It's the soul of your phone and tablet. And this one that you've got in your machine is called Android, right? And it comes from Google. Google wrote it, the Google company. And the amazing thing is Google developed this for their phones, and then they basically gave it away for free to any vendor, any manufacturer of phones who wanted to use Android. So the difference between Android phones and Apple is Apple phones, Apple iPhones, there's only one place you can get the software from, and that's Apple. Android, of course, and there's only one place you can buy the phones, and that's Apple. Android, there are dozens of manufacturers. So if you go to the AT&T store, the Verizon store, or whatever, T-Mobile store, you'll see 20 different phones all using Android. So the beauty is you can buy whatever phone you like. You want an El Cheapo, you can get one for $300 these days. You want the fancy schmancy one, they go up to $2,000, right? It's like motor cars. You want a Chevy or you want a Cadillac, you make the decision, right? With iPhone, you've got one choice, and that's the Cadillac, right? So obviously you can tell who's going to be more expensive on phones. iPhones are wonderful, but everything's a lot more expensive than it is with Android. And the interesting thing that Android did, or Google did, is that Android is exactly the same on your phone or your tablet, right? So when you know how to use one, you know how to use the other, right? So there are lots of manufacturers here, as I say, yes, some of the names in the third line: HTC, Wacom, Samsung, Amazon makes one, Lenovo, Asus, all of these computer companies and many others, a lot of Chinese companies that we don't even get here, all make phones, and they literally, someplace in the world like India, you can get a really basic phone running Android for $50, which, is fine for people in third world countries and so on. Samsung currently the biggest brand, so you may have a Samsung phone. And the only difference between the cheaper phone and the more expensive one are things like slightly better screen and a better camera, and some of them, mine has got a fingerprint scanner, so instead of keying in a password, I can just put my finger on it, and so on and so forth, right? So they all are much of muchness. If you know how to use one, you know how to use all of them, just like with a motor car. You don't have to relearn how to drive. If you go from a Chevy to a Ford to BMW, they've got the gears in the same place, the steering wheel works the same way, the engine under the hood, which you don't care about, may be different, right? But who cares as long as it gets you from A to B. Phone is the same. really not much difference between the, now look here, the Android tablet and the iPad. I always get asked this question, what's the difference? And I say, there were quite serious, significant differences at one time. Now it's basically, you know, a Chevy and a Ford, right? You pays your money and you takes your choices, they say. Whatever you prefer, you know, that's the one that you would buy. Excuse me, sorry, let me go back a step. Right, so like I said before, you can only get iPads from Apple, so they're usually more expensive. Their phones are more expensive. There are no iPhones that cost, you know, $50 or $100, except very secondhand used ones. You know, you've got more choice with Android. Now the question here is, you know, phone, laptop, tablet, what's the difference between them? It's starting to get confusing, right? And the answer really today is I call it the Starbucks difference. You know, when you go to Starbucks, what do they ask you? What size do you want? Small, medium, and large, or whatever they call it these days, venti and schmenti, and they got fancy name, but small, medium, and large. The coffee inside in the cup is exactly the same coffee, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
One has got a smaller cup, one's got a bigger cup. If you really need coffee, you buy the big one for $6. And if you just want a quick drink, you buy the small one for $5, sort of thing, right? But they all taste the same. And that really is what has happened. So on the right-hand side here, you can see an Android phone, and then you can see an Android tablet. And then below, you can see a Windows computer. And essentially, these days now, they all look and feel more or less the same. And even really the primary difference, I guess, is on this third bullet here. You choose the device that best suits you. So the Android phone is great because it's small, it fits in your purse or in your pocket. You can use it for calls and you can use it for texting. The tablet is a little bigger. It can do all of the same things, but it's better because it's got a bigger screen. I like to read books on my Android tablet. So it's more or less the size of a book or a paperback, and you can actually turn it sideways and get 2 pages at the same time, like reading a paperback. Your laptop today, your Windows or your Mac laptop is really more for productive work, you know, typing, doing lots of documents, spreadsheets, writing reports, writing a book if you're writing a book, and so on. You could do all of that on your tablet. You could do all of that on your phone. It's just probably more convenient on the bigger computer with a keyboard and so on. But of course, today you can attach a keyboard to your phone if you wish, and you can attach a keyboard to your tablet. You can buy little keyboards that don't cost much, $20, $30, and then you've got a proper keyboard. So, you know, really the differences are very minor today. The interesting thing is that all of these devices can be synchronized, as we say, with the same data. So the amazing thing is that if I'm sitting on a plane, as I was the other day, I went to New York, taking out the tablet's a bit of a nuisance. I just used my phone and I could read a book that I was reading. When I you know, got back to Atlanta and I turned the phone, went back to using it as a phone. When I got home, I opened my tablet. I went to my Kindle app, which is for reading books, and it opened up at exactly the same book on the same page where I left it on the phone.
Oh, wow.
And if I open the book on my Windows computer and I go to Kindle, it recognizes me again and it says, you are reading this book and you are at page 67 in the middle of the page. It will open up exactly where I was, which is amazing. So these guys actually all can share or be synchronized with the same data, which is really interesting, right? So that means that, you know, you also got multiple copies of your data now. So if you lose your phone or you lose your tablet, your data isn't lost as it was in the old days. Okay, so, oops. This thing out the way. So let's talk about some features. Most of this you probably know, but I just want to go over it. So that you have a power on or off button, and that it says lower center. That's a mistake there. That's a typo. It's on Android phones, the power button is usually on the right. So it's the button at the top of the phone on the right, and there's usually a single button there, and you hold it down, and that turns off the phone or the tablet. Excuse me again. Or you press it when it's off, and it turns it on. So it's an on-off button. you have volume buttons, usually on the side. So on most Android phones, the volume button's on the left. There's some versions of the phone have one button, and if you push it at the top, it makes it louder. And if you push it at the bottom, it's kind of like a rocker switch, then it gets softer. My new Android phone has got two buttons, right? One is louder and one is softer. So when you press the button, it makes the volume of your calls or your music you're listening to, whatever, louder or softer. If you look at the bottom of your phone, you turn your phone towards you and you look at the bottom, usually on the left, you'll see a little round hole, a little circular hole on the left side, and that's the earphone jack. So you can buy good old-fashioned earphones, which they've got a little single pin plug on the one end. You just plug it in there and put the earphone either over your head if it's a big one, or in your ear if it's the small ones. And now you can hear the other person without other people being disturbed, right? If you're watching a movie, watching a video, or just talking on the phone and there are other people around, right? So that's the earphone jack. I'm going to skip to the last one, the power connector, which is in the middle of the bottom usually, and there's a little rectangular hole, and that's where you plug in the one end of what is called a USB cable, and the other end you plug into the electrical power supply on the wall, and that, as we know, will charge the phone, right? Also, looking at the second last button on this page, cameras. We have actually two cameras. We have one facing forward and one facing backward. So if you look on the back of your phone, you'll clearly see the camera. It's like a big round thing, and some phones now have two cameras on the back. My new one has two cameras, right? And then if you look on the front, it's much harder to see, but on the front of your phone, when you're looking at the screen, you will see a tiny little hole, either in the dead center or sometimes over on the right. And that tiny little hole is the forward-facing camera. So the question is, why do I need two cameras? And I remember when I first saw the iPhone when it came out and it had a camera, my first thought was, why the heck do I need a camera in my phone, right? What a dumb idea. Well, that turned out not to be such a dumb idea, because we were never able to, just take photos before you needed a camera. Now your phone could do it. But the brilliant idea is that they put two cameras in, and that seemed even crazier to me. Why do I need another camera facing towards me? And of course, what that did was it created the new word in the English language called the selfie. And for the first time in history, you could actually take a photograph of yourself. And if you think about it, with the old cameras we used to have, when you had to add film in it and you had to take it to Wolf camera to be developed, remember those days? You needed to, if you wanted to take a picture, including yourself, you had to put the camera down, turn on a little timer, and then run back to be with your family or your friends. And the camera, the timer would go tick, 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 tick for 10 seconds and then take the shot. Not very good. Now, of course, with two cameras, you actually have a camera facing towards you. And so you can take photos of yourself, with your family, with your kids, your friends, whatever. Kind of a very clever idea, right? And I'll talk more about the camera in a later session, but it's not just a camera. Because this device that you're holding in your hand isn't really a phone. It's a computer. It's a very, very, very powerful computer. Many times more powerful than the first computers I worked on back in the 1970s, which cost millions of dollars. This little thing in my hand is more powerful. One of the things it can do is make calls, or take photographs. But behind the scenes is sitting a very powerful computer, as I said. And what that computer does when you take a photograph is it's watching your photo all the time. And so you remember in the old days when you had a camera that you had to have the photographs developed. If your hand trembled a little bit, as most of us do, or just shook at the moment when you pressed the button, the picture would come out all blurry and you'd have to throw it away, right? The computer in your phone and in your tablet is actually watching that and countering that effect. So if you move your hand slightly, and which would normally blur it, the computer is actually reversing that and stabilizing the picture. So unless you actually move your hand, 12 inches from left to right, you'll always get a perfect picture. You'll never get a blurry picture unless there's something wrong with your camera, right? So now we look at the device here. I'm showing you a tablet, but the phone is exactly the same. So I want to just familiarize you with some of the terms. So firstly, we have this big, beautiful screen we know about, this color screen.
Yes.
And that's called the touch screen. And that was another brilliant idea that Apple, or Steve Jobs, came up with, what, only 13 years ago, 2007. Can you believe that? Before 2007, you remember the little flip phones with the buttons on, right? What could you do with a flip phone? Well, right. you could make phone calls, right?
Right. That
Which sounds it's perfectly logical because a phone is for making calls.
Right.
Of course, Apple had different ideas that they would put a very powerful computer in, and then you could do a lot more. So the first thing they came up with is this brilliant idea of the touch screen. So I remember when the first iPhone came out, I looked and I looked at the thing, I said, these guys are nuts. There's no keyboard. How are you going to type in the number? And the idea was that this screen is very, very clever piece of electronics. It can sense where your finger is. So there's a little bit of electrical activity in your finger because of your nerves, right? It's very tiny. And so you have to be real close to the screen, maybe a quarter of an inch away, and it can sense that your finger is here and it's not there. So of course, the initial thing was, how do you dial? How do you dial the numbers? We still say dial, don't we? Even though dials are long gone. How do you key in the number? Well, a little keyboard would come up on the screen showing you 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And when you put your finger on the 4 to dial 404, it can sense where your finger is. Your finger is over the 4 and it's not over the 9. And so as soon as you touch the screen at that point, that's the signal to the screen to say, that's the number I want. Or if you want to type something in, something alphabetic, same thing, a little keyboard will pop up and you can type A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it knows which letter pretty much you're typing, right? The keyboards on these little phones tend to be a little frustrating for us older folks, because when you touch a letter or a number, your finger's round, right? It's not flat. And so it rolls over slightly to the one on the right or the one on the left, and then we all curse because you got the wrong letter, right?
Yes, a lot.
Yeah. So actually the solution to that is to get one of these cheap pens, ballpoint pens, that have got a little rubber tip on them. You can buy them anywhere. They cost a buck or two, right? But they got a little rubber tip. And so if you use that rubber tip, that's much more accurate, right? And you'll be 100% accurate. Of course, the young people type with their thumbs, which I just cannot master. It doesn't work for me. And so they're much better at it because the thumb is stronger than your finger, right? Your thumb is a very strong finger. But basically that's how the touch screen works. So besides the keyboard, the brilliant idea they had was, in the old days, when I was early in computers, software was hard to use, right? There were a million things that a piece of software could do, and there were lots and lots of commands, and you needed to be really, experienced or smart to know the commands, which was good for geeks like me, because people like you had to call us in to ask how to do things, right? That was called job security. Well, the idea that Apple came up with changed that completely. So instead of having one or two very big, very complicated programs, they came up with the idea we'll have a whole lot of little, very simple programs, each of which does one thing, and it does it well. So now you have all these little pictures, we call them icons, right? And we'll talk about in a moment how these little pictures drive everything. So getting back to the screen here, you can see the camera at the top. You can see where the arrow is, the front camera is pointing at the front camera at the top. Oops, sorry. And the rear camera is at the back, of course. We've got the touch screen. Down at the bottom, usually on most phones, there's only one, or tablets, there's only one physical button other than the on-off button and the volume button on the right and the left. And that's the one right down in the middle. It's an actual button usually. And if you press it, it's called the home button. And the reason it's called the home button is, again, another very clever idea. Wherever you happen to have got to on your phone, if you've been playing around and now you're completely lost. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm lost. If you press the home button, bingo, you go back home to this screen. This is the home screen. So it's kind of like, you remember Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz? When she clicked her ruby slippers, what happened?
Yep.
She went home to Kansas.
Yep.
Same here, you know. So you can do that in your car. If you're on the interstate and you get lost, or you're in downtown Atlanta and you don't know where you are, it would be nice to have a button that took you back to your garage at home, right? But we don't have that, but you've certainly got that on the phone. The newer phones that are coming out, so my phone as well now, doesn't have a physical button anymore. It's again what we call a virtual button. It's a little, it sort of lights up on the screen when you need it, and it goes away when you don't, but it's still exactly the same thing. And then there are two other buttons, virtual buttons we call them, to the left and the right of the home button. The one on the left looks like two little squares, right? One square on top of the other. And the one on the right looks like this arrow going backwards on itself, right? So the arrow going backwards on itself, as you can see on the screen, means go back to whatever you were doing before, wherever you are now, go back one item, right? So that's great. And then the one with the little rectangle will show you all the apps, all the programs that you've been working with today, right? So if 10 minutes ago you were looking at your email, you don't have to go back to the home screen and find your email and start it again. It's all sitting there waiting for you, like a pile of papers on your desk. And so if you press that, you'll see the fourth one back or the fifth one back is your email. If you just touch that, the email will come back and you can carry on from where you left off. So very, very useful thing indeed. Okay, and then on most phones and most tablets, Android, because Google, the big thing what Google does is search. They will find anything from you for you on the internet. That's how they got so big and so profitable. So they give us this little white bar in the middle called the search bar. And you can type anything you like in there. You can type the name of an email of a website like www.amazon.com, and the browser, I'll talk about that in a moment, will open up and take you to amazon.com or newyorktimes.com or socialsecurity.gov if you want to look at your social security, right? Or you can type questions in there in English, like, you know, what time does Benson Center open? And it'll probably find that somewhere on the internet and tell you they open at 9 a.m. or whatever it might be. Or, you know, what's the address of, you know, Target in Sandy Springs? It'll find it for you and you know, show you a picture of the place and give you the address. Or you know, I need to have my hair done. You might say, I want to have my hair done. Where's a hairdresser nearby? And it will look on the internet and find the hairdressers that are, you know, within a mile or two of you. Won't find every hairdresser in Atlanta or in the state of Georgia, which would be useless to you, but it would find those hairdressers or nail salons or coffee shops or whatever that are the closest to you within a mile or two. Really amazing, right? Okay, let's move on. Again, the device has two ways that it can display stuff. Portrait mode, which is standing up, or what they call landscape or sideways mode. Sometimes you'll find your phone will not turn sideways. That's one thing I just don't understand. You think this would be natural, but there's a setting in the phone, and we'll talk about that later too, that you can just press one button if it doesn't turn sideways, and now it'll turn sideways. Why that isn't automatically set on, I have no idea, but that, you know, we'll talk about that later. The important thing is that the main screen is usually the same. As you see here, it's got the time, 5:48 p.m., shows you the date, Tuesday, August the 22nd, and often it'll show you other stuff like the weather, you know, it's sunny day in Sandy Springs, 77 degrees. But the beauty is if you go to New York or Los Angeles or some other city, it will change instantly. If you're in Miami, it will show you, you're now in Miami and the temperature's, well, Miami is probably 92 degrees, sort of. Okay, so not only does it do all the other clever things we spoke about, but it also knows exactly where you are. It has a GPS device in it. And so how does it know I'm in Sandy Springs? Well, it's talking to satellites up in space, believe it or not, all the time. And from what it gets back from the satellite says, I know exactly where you are. You're right at this point on, you know, on the surface of the earth, and that corresponds to Sandy Springs or New York or Miami or wherever you happen to be. So that's, you know, pretty impressive. So we spoke about the screen, okay? And there are various things you can do with the screen. And you know some of these, I'm just going to repeat it, but there's some things that people don't necessarily know. So obviously the one thing you can do with your fingers on the screen, they call it a gesture, but it's really what you can do with usually one finger or two fingers on the screen. So if you just touch an icon, one of those pictures, they're called icons or apps. I prefer the name app, which means an application, a program that does something, right? But when you press the picture, it only does one thing. So the calendar icon or the calendar app only shows you your calendar. It doesn't do email. And when you press the email, it only shows you your emails, but it doesn't allow you to take photographs. You want to photographs, you go back to the home screen, press the camera icon, and the camera will pop up. So each icon or each app does one thing, and it does it really, really well. So you just tap it very gently, just touch it gently, and that's an instruction to Android, to the operating system, to say, I want to do that app. I want that app to open up. It's kind of like, you remember Aladdin and the magic lamp, you know, when he rubbed the lamp, bingo, the genie would appear and grant him 3 wishes or whatever it was, right? Well, here you can have as many wishes as you like just by touching the appropriate icon. Now, there's also a thing called the long press. So that's a short press. They call it a tap. But if you hold an icon down, if you keep your finger on it for about 2 or 3 seconds, really not long, it will now allow you, a little menu will pop up. You'll see a little menu pop up. And one of the things you'll be able to do with it by holding your finger on the little picture is you can now move it around. So you can arrange that home screen to look any way you like. You can have your email in the top left corner, the top right corner, and the bottom in the middle, wherever you want. You can arrange them alphabetically or by color or any way you like, right? So I have my screens set up exactly the way I want. So I know exactly where the things are that I use a lot. They're always in the same place. So to move it around is called a swipe. You hold it down and move it. And so that will allow you to move apps from one screen to another. We'll actually do that, right? And then when it's in the place you want, you just lift your finger and the app the icon will have moved. You don't have to worry about the other icons. Android automatically will move them all down and make space for the new ones. So if you want to move one icon to the space between 2 other icons, just move it into that little gap between them, and Android will automatically push everything to the right and onto the next line and make space for you. And the 2 that I like are called pinch and spread. So pinch is if you place 2 fingers a little bit apart on the screen and you bring them together, like pinching, this will allow you to zoom in and out. So pinch will zoom out, makes the picture smaller. It's like you're stepping back. And going the other way, where you start with your fingers, 2 fingers together and move them apart, that's zooming in. That's when you now looking, you imagine you've got a microscope, right? And you can see, if you can't read what's on the screen, you can make it bigger, which is a very, very useful thing indeed. And we'll talk about, there are other uses for this as well that you can make. I spoke about the 2 little icons next to the home screen. The one at the top with the 2 little, looks like squares, one behind the other. If you tap that, as I said, it will show you all the recent apps you've used, kind of like what that icon is supposed to mean is like a stack of sheets of paper lying on your desk. And you can go back 3 or 4 or 2 or 1 and see the previous one or the 2 before or 3 before. And if you just tap it, that app will come back up and you're back where you were. If you were looking at something on Amazon, now you've gone on and you've done your email. Instead of going all the way back to the beginning, just tap this little button and you'll see email and Amazon. Touch the Amazon and she pops up like the genie out of the lamp and she's there to do what you want. The one at the bottom that looks like this arrow going around in a circle returns you to the most recent app. So if you looked at your emails and then you looked at your calendar, and while you're in your calendar, you now press this, it'll take you back to your email, which is the one that you've just done. It's exactly the same as the other one at the top, which shows you all the apps. You will see the one you've just done as well, but this is just a little quicker. You don't have to look at the apps or anything. You just say, I just want to go back to the one I was just doing. So very useful, not essential, but very useful. Now, the one button that I want to talk about is called the Settings app. Settings, right? And it looks like this gear wheel that you can see in the top right-hand corner. Looks like a little gear. Settings is really a stupid name. Settings doesn't mean anything. What's setting? It really means Android. It should be labeled Android. This is the button that you use very infrequently. You don't use it a lot. You use it at the beginning when you set up your phone, or if you make the odd change, but by and large, you don't need the settings very much. It's like your car. You don't need the gas tank very often. You only fill up your gas tank every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever. You just need to know where the gas tank is, and you need it when you need it, but most times you don't need it, right? It's the same here. The settings, you'll see, very, very useful to do things, and some things you have to use it for, but you won't use it very often. And like I said, the name settings is stupid. You really are talking to Android, and you're saying to Android, I want to make some changes to my phone or my tablet. So when you click the settings button, a whole menu appears on the screen. If you're on the tablet, you'll have two columns. One will be a whole lot of things that you can do, kind of like a Chinese menu. Here's the chicken, and here's the rice, and here's the steak or whatever. And then to the right of it will be a bigger column, which will vary depending on which button or which thing you chose on the left. So it's like the ingredients. When you're talking about the chicken, on the right, it'll tell you what all the ingredients are, right? But if you go to the beef, it'll tell you a different set of ingredients. Same here. So we'll see a bunch of them. We'll see a bunch of them in a moment. This is really just roughly quickly getting through this stuff. We'll look at it in more detail starting next week. But
Okay.
the first option, the most important option on your settings is that usually at the top, and it's usually labeled connections, right? And this is really means, how do I connect to the outside world? How does the phone or the app, or the tablet, excuse me, connect to the outside world, right? So some of the settings are, the internet, Bluetooth, I'm going to talk about that, and so on. And like I said, without an internet connection, you can't do much on the tablet or your phone except make calls, right? That's about it. So not on the tablet, really on the phone. But once you've got an internet connection, you can go anywhere you like, right? On the internet, you can go to Amazon.com, you go to NewYorkTimes.com, you can go to BestBuy.com, Walmart.com, anywhere you like. You can shop, you can read the news, you can watch movies, and so on. And so the first thing under connections, so when you click connections, you'll see a whole lot of options on the right. Now on your phone, you can have these two side by side because there isn't enough space. So you'll just see the main menu, let's say, the menu of all the dishes you can order. One of them will be connections. And when you press connections, the right side of the screen, on the bigger screen, on the tablet, on the little screen, on the phone, will now just pop up. Otherwise, they're exactly the same. One has to do it in two goes because it doesn't have a lot of space, which is the phone. And the other one's got plenty of space, so it can show you both of them at the same time, right? So one of the options under connections, or usually the first one, is Wi-Fi, right? And Wi-Fi, of course, is the way that we connect to the internet. It's a kind of magical technology that really only came about maybe 10 years ago, right? Before that, there was no Wi-Fi. You needed a cable, you needed a wire, you needed a connection to connect to the internet. Now it's a kind of magic connection that's sitting in the air all around us all the time. We can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't smell it, we can't feel it, but it's there. Kind of like radio or TV signals used to be in the old days. If you're connected to the internet, it'll show you that you're connected to, and it'll tell you the name of the network. Either the network at your house, at your home, or a network, if you're at the Benson Center, you would see Benson, or your network at work, right? If you're at work now, you'll see the network at work, whatever network you're connected to. If you're not connected, it will show you a list of Wi-Fis that it can see, and there may be more than one. So even in your office, there may be your own office Wi-Fi, but it may also be able to sense the Wi-Fi of the office next door, a different company. Or if you live in a block of apartments, it will sense the Wi-Fi of the guy above you and the guy below you and the guy to the left and the guy to the right. You may see a whole lot of Wi-Fis, right? when you choose the one you want, either it's a free Wi-Fi that doesn't need a password, such as you would get at Starbucks. You go to Starbucks, you go to Atlanta Airport, or many restaurants, you can get free Wi-Fi. So you just look there and it says Starbucks Wi-Fi, you click on it and you're on the internet. If it's a private Wi-Fi, like my Wi-Fi or your own Wi-Fi, it'd probably ask you for a password, right? And the reason for that is that obviously you don't want people sitting outside your house or your apartment, using your Wi-Fi for free when you pay for it, or the guy next door to you is slowing you down. You can't get anything done because he's watching movies, downloading big movies and watching movies and using up your Wi-Fi. It's kind of like your water or your electricity connection. I don't want anybody just walking into my house and, connecting up to my electrical power without my permission, right? If it's somebody I know, that's fine. And the way I ensure that somebody I know can connect to my Wi-Fi, or you connect to your Wi-Fi, is you give them the password, right? And normally when AT&T or Verizon, whoever installs your network, they will install it with a password. If you're at an office, usually that is set up automatically by your IT people. So from day one, your system will automatically connect to my company Wi-Fi, whatever it's called, right? And the only time you'll ever need to go to the settings there is if they change the password, right? So if for some reason they decide to change the password, you would have to go so it would no longer connect. You would simply go in, tell it to connect to that Wi-Fi and enter the correct password. What's clever about this is once you've connected to a Wi-Fi, it will remember that password. So if you come to my house and I allow you onto my Wi-Fi and you go away and you don't come back for 6 months, when you come back to my house in 6 months, or you come back to the Benson Center in 6 months, the system will automatically detect. It says, I've been on that Wi-Fi. This is the Benson Wi-Fi, or this is Jeff's Wi-Fi. It will remember the password, log in, and everything will work great, right? So I've probably got on my phone, passwords and logins for hotels that I stayed at 3 years ago. It doesn't cost anything. You might as well leave them there. You can delete them if you wish, but in most cases, it's not worth the trouble. Okay, so here it is in landscape mode. We spoke about that before. We'll talk about all of the options in a while. So we said now that these little icons, these little pictures that sit on your screen are called either icons or apps. App is short for application program. And it's a piece of software that does one or more specific functions. Usually it does one thing and it does it really well. It may have a lot of sub-functions, but it does one thing well. So Android gives you a lot of standard applications. It gives you the clock, it gives you the camera, it gives you the date and time, and a whole bunch of things. They just come standard with the phone. If you press on the clock, it will allow you to change the time or change the date, but you will also be able to, in the clock app, you'll also be able to set yourself an alarm, and you'll be able to see what the time is in a different time zone. So if you want to phone your family in England, you could look at the clock, you could set it, and you could ask it, what is the time in England right now? And it will show you, whatever the time zone is in England or Miami or Moscow, wherever you happen to want to be. So it does a lot of things like that. So that was what the phones came with in the good old days. They came with these basic apps, 5 or 10 of them, clock, camera, email, and stuff like that, and that's that. But then Apple had the brilliant idea of opening their so-called app store. They had an app store, a store, really not a bricks and mortar store, but a place on the internet where they kept all of these apps, right, that they had written. They opened that up to anybody, all software developers. And they said, any of you can write software, and then you can put your software on the Apple iStore. Google has exactly the same thing. It's called they call it the Play Store, right? They couldn't call it the App Store because Apple already had that name. So they call it the Play Store. And in this Play Store are tens of thousands, probably millions of apps today, millions and millions of. Everybody who can write a program, anybody who's had an idea and can write a program, can write it, put it into the App Store, and you can click on it in the App Store and it'll download it automatically onto your phone or your tablet. And so there are apps for just about everything. There are games, thousands of games. You like to play chess, you like to play Yahtzee, you like to play Scrabble. There are just dozens and dozens and dozens, thousands probably of games you can, and most of them are free. Some are not, but most of them are free. There are different email systems. There's lots of stuff, of course, for retail, especially today when we can't go out much to shop anymore. So Amazon is making money hand over fist, right? So Amazon was one of the early guys to realize they could give you an app, right? And you could easily shop on Amazon. There are apps for books, to read books. That's another idea that came from Amazon called Kindle. You can do your banking. You can get GPS directions, right? You can get car rides from Uber or Lyft. You can book airline tickets and so forth. All apps to do all of that stuff. And again, in exactly the same way as with the standard apps that came on the phone when you bought it, or the tablet when you bought it, all you have to do to make an app work, no matter how complicated it is behind the scenes, all you have to do is touch the icon, touch the little app picture, and it works. So here at the bottom, I've enlarged some standard useful apps. So Amazon is obviously one. It looks like that. When you click on it, it takes you straight to Amazon, right? Why would Amazon want to give me such an app? Well, obviously, if you've got an app on your, a button on your phone that takes you direct to Amazon, they know then if you press that, you're not going to be shopping at Walmart or somewhere else. You're going to be buying it from them. So it's very clever, right? But it makes life easier for us to do, for us users. The second one is Kindle. It shows this little boy sitting under a tree reading a book. Amazon, many years ago, came out with a little tablet computer the size of a paperback. They called it the Kindle. And basically, it was designed to read books, obviously books that you bought from Amazon electronically. Because you remember Amazon, when they started, were just a very big bookstore. And so that was a logical thing to have. Well, of course, and you had to buy a separate device for it. My wife still has a Kindle, which is probably 10 years old, falling apart. She loves it, and she reads books on it because it's very clear. It's black on white text. It's light on your eyes and so forth, and you can have as many books as you like on it. But it didn't take the software guys very long to realize that they could duplicate it. And so now on your phone or your tablet or your Android tablet, you can download an app called Kindle. You go to the Play Store, there it is, Google Play Store. You can see it up above. You click on that and you type Kindle into the search bar in the Play Store, and it'll find the Kindle app, and you just touch your finger on it and it'll install it automatically on your phone. And now you can read books, you can buy books from Amazon. And in fact, now you can use Kindle to get books out of the library, free books, right? Obviously, if you go to Amazon, you have to pay for the books. And the idea that they had was no book would ever cost more than $10. So no matter what book you're buying, they're pretty much all $9.99. There are a few that are really expensive, and they might be $14.99, but nothing much more than that. But like I say, most books are $10 or less. And there are plenty of books now you can get free from the Fulton County Library using your Kindle. So unlike in the old days, you had to go to the library, get the book, or wait for it if someone else had it, take it home, read it, and make sure you brought it back within 2 weeks. Otherwise, they get nasty and they fine you. On the Kindle, you order it, you connect to the library, you borrow a book, and at a specific date, 7 days later or 2 weeks later, whatever they allow you to read the book, the book just goes away. That's it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go back to the library. It's just wonderful. The third icon from the left, the one with the red and blue, that is Delta. That's the same insignia that Delta has on its tailplanes of all its planes. And by clicking on that app, I can book tickets on Delta. I can check arrival times and departure times. I can look for my lost baggage and see if they found it. Anything like that all comes with the app. So very useful. And not only has Delta got an app, but of course Southwest and American and United and all the rest of them have got their own apps, whichever airline you belong to. And it will allow you to check your frequent flyer balances and all kinds of stuff like that. The fourth one from the left, the red and white, that's the insignia of Bank of America. And so by installing that app, if you're a Bank of America customer, now you can do everything of your banking online, including depositing checks from your house without ever going near the bank. Obviously, all the other banks, you know, Wachovia, SunTrust, Truist Bank, all of them, they've all got their own app. So whatever bank you bank with, they've all got an app now, and that allow you to do just about everything. The only thing you can do with that app, sadly, is get cash right there. They haven't yet come up with an idea where your phone has a little slot at the bottom and $20 bills will come out, so you can go get money for groceries or something. But other than that, you can do everything. The fifth one, the F, is of course Facebook, and I won't talk much about that because in general, in my security training course, I have a course on security for seniors. I recommend you stay away from Facebook because it's a wonderful idea, but it's tended to become a cesspool, and there are lots of people, lots of bad guys trolling around on Facebook, trying to find, you know, seniors to scam seniors. Unfortunately, it's true. That's what happens, and you know, it's just a fact of life. Next one is Lyft, L-Y-F-T, and Lyft is the competitor of Uber. Uber has exactly the same app, and this is the most wonderful thing that anybody ever thought of. You have this little button, you press it, you type in where you want to go, and it's very intelligent. If you want to go to Perimeter Mall, you don't have to even know the address of Perimeter Mall. You just type in Perimeter Mall or Atlanta Airport or Target Sandy Springs. It's smart enough. It knows where Target is. It'll find the Target in Sandy Springs. Or if there's more than one of them, it'll show you two of them and say, which one do you want? And you press the button, and 7 minutes later, some dude arrives in his car to take you to Perimeter Mall or wherever it is you want to go. And you pay it on your credit card, don't need any money. It's really a wonderful idea. And of course, there are many, many more of similar useful ideas that have come with the phone. And then the last one, that sort of triangle with 4 colors on, is Google's Play Store. So all of Google's apps, and I'm going to talk about them also in the next session, all of Google's apps have pretty much got a shape, a circle or a square or a triangle with those 4 colors, green, blue, red, and yellow in different orders. And usually when you see the 4 colors, you know that's Google. So if you press on that little icon, it'll take you instantly to the Google Play Store, right? Or you can always get to any of these places that these apps go to through your browser. The app just makes it a lot easier. So if you like to shop a lot on Amazon, just put an icon there and you don't have to type anything. You just hit the button that says, a little picture that says Amazon or Delta. Amazon, instantly you're at the Amazon site and you can shop till you drop. Or Delta, you can buy an airline ticket or check when a plane's coming in or whether the flight is late and all that kind of stuff. All very, very useful stuff. Okay, I'll just talk few seconds. I'm going to go on a bit longer because we started a little late. So I'll go on another couple of minutes. By the way, if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll just chip in and ask. I'm perfectly happy to answer questions. So you have the standard apps. There's the clock, and the little icon looks like a clock, right? Which is really funny. And most of the icons today look like the way they were in the old days. So, you know, almost nobody uses a clock anymore with their hands. Nobody even wears a watch. The kids all get their time from the phone, but the app for the clock looks like an old clock with hands, you know, hour and minute hand and the second hand. So that will allow you to set alarms, look at the world clock, have a stopwatch, a timer, whatever, right? So if you want to bake a cake, you can set a timer. Say, okay, I need to bake this cake for, you know, 30 minutes, set it for 30 minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, the alarm will sound bing, 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 and you know that your cake is ready. The camera looks like the lens of an old camera, right? Which nobody has anymore except the professionals. And that, if you click on that, it'll allow you to take pictures. And there's a little icon in the camera icon that allows you to flip from the front camera to the back camera and back again. You can flip between them. The one in the bottom left-hand corner you'll see is a circle with the 4 colors in. So of course that's the Google app. And the circle with the 4 colors in is actually Chrome, Google's web browser. I'm going to talk about web browsers next time, but that's the app that allows you to go to the internet. There are other browsers around that do exactly the same thing, but that is Google's one. The big M, an app with a big M, that's Gmail. That's Google's Mail. So if you want to use Gmail for your email, it's a free email. It's now probably the biggest one in the world, and it allows you to to send and receive emails, not only to people who are also on Gmail, but to anybody. So somebody who's on Yahoo Mail or some other mail system, you can still send them a message. The one that looks like a calendar and it's got the date on and so on, that gives you your calendar. It allows you to see all your appointments, your meetings, the things you're going to do today, and so on. We've spoken about the Play Store. Notice it's a triangle with the 4 colors. Then usually you'll see this little app here that sort of looks like, you know, from the old comic books. You remember when people were talking, you'd have a sort of balloon with a little, you know, little thing sticking out the bottom showing which person was talking. That was the icon that they use now for sending messages or texts, right? Now, this was another brilliant idea that came with the phone. And I think the phone companies came up, AT&T and the rest of them came up with this idea together with Apple, is that you could use your phone to send short emails, you might say, very short emails, just, you know, hi friend, how are you doing today? Or sorry, I'll be late. We're meeting for lunch, but I'm going to be a little late. You know, that kind of message, although texting now has gone to become gigantic and people send long, long messages. And originally it was only for the phone. The tablets were not designed to be phones. It didn't seem to make sense to be able to have a phone that was that big. You know, you'd sort of have to carry it on your shoulder like the old boom boxes. But of course, the software guys figured that out too. And basically now there are apps on, we'll talk about them, there are apps on your tablet computer, on your Android tablet, where you can text as well. And then a very, very useful app, and I'm going to mention that one, and I think then we can break, is this little one in the bottom left-hand corner. It sort of looks like a dice, you know, but it's got 9 dots on it, not 6 like on a dice. It's got 9 dots. And that little thing is really, it will say apps underneath it. And that is the list of all the apps you've got. Now, the trouble is sometimes you can somehow misplace this app or this particular app, and then it's really hard to go find an app that's disappeared. On my new phone, which I just got a few weeks ago, I see now they've locked it in. You can't actually move or delete the apps, which makes sense. So if you click on this little icon, it will take you with a screen. It'll show you all your installed apps. So if you installed a game, you'll see the game there. It'll show you that there's the calendar app and the mail app and any other apps you might have. If you've installed Uber, the Uber app, it will be there. And so if it sometimes happens, an app disappears from your phone. You've accidentally deleted it or it's just vanished. You can always get it back. Always, always, always. You go to the apps, this one, it's there. You'll find, let's say it's the Uber app. It's disappeared. I can't find my Uber app. It's vanished. Okay. Go to apps. Find Uber, it's alphabetically arranged, so it'll be under U, or Lyft, which will be under L, or the Delta app, which will be under D. Put your finger on it, hold it down, a little menu will pop up. And one of the options on the little menu will be, put this on the home screen. And so if you just touch that little option, that's all you have to do, it'll instantly install it on the home screen. And let me add one more thing that not everybody knows. You actually have several home screens. So the home screen itself hasn't got a lot of real estate. So you can only get, I don't know, 12 or 15 apps on it, which is quite a lot. But you may have more than that. So what Android have done is they've given you, I think it's 2 or maybe even 3 more home screens. And you get to them just by putting your finger on the screen. Now, this is another gesture you can do. And flipping to the left. You just put your finger on the screen and flip to the left with your forefinger. And a new home screen, which you can imagine it's like an invisible screen to the right of your phone, comes onto the phone. And if you do it again, you'll get another one, and it's either 3 or 4. Some versions have 4, most have 3. And so you've got plenty place. So what I do is I keep on the main home screen just the stuff I use every day. You know, the phone, texting, email, and so forth. And on the second and third home screens, I put stuff that I don't use so often. So for example, you might put the apps, the one at the bottom, on the second screen because you don't use it very often. You might put settings on the second screen because you don't use it that often, right? But when you want it, it's there. And you know, that you can then on each of those home screens, as I explained earlier, arrange it any way you like. Put your finger on an icon, hold it down for a few seconds until the little menu pops up, and then you can move it away. If you want to move it from the first home screen to the second home screen, logically you drag it to the right edge of the screen, and it'll pop over onto the second home screen. If it's on the second home screen, you want to bring it back to the main home screen, logically you would drag it to the left side. So you just hold it, drag it over the left side, and it'll sort of automatically, imagine you've got 3 pages side by side, and you can drag it from one page to the other. Okay, and then, so next time we're going to talk more about the Google apps. So here's all the Google apps. There's Gmail, there's Maps, which allow you to go anywhere on the planet. Google Drive, which is storage for you, free storage in the cloud. Play music, play movies. Hangouts is Google's version of texting, right? So Google has its own texting, which calls Hangout, where you can text with people anywhere in the world. And the amazing thing about using the texting is it doesn't cost anything. So you can send as long a message as you like to somebody in London or in Moscow or Sydney, Australia, and it's absolutely free because it goes on the internet. And then photos is Google's photo album. So all photos you take with a camera automatically go into the album, and you can arrange them by subject or by date or whatever. It's very, very clever. We'll talk about them in a little more detail next week. So I think I'll stop at that point. If there are any questions, I'll take them now. And Gail, I hope you wrote down my email address. Don't forget to send me an email, and I will send you this material so you have it for reference, or you can print it out and follow from your own printout while I'm talking in the next sessions.
Yes, I did. And this was really a good class. Your last tip about moving icons from screen to screen, I had struggled with that. So now I was able to just swipe to the left, and there it went. So that was good.
I'm very happy you found it.
Yeah, that was good. So I like tips where you can quickly use it.
The amazing thing is that these devices are so clever, and the things you need to do to make things happen are very simple, like swiping left or swiping right.
Right.
But if you don't know about it, it's absolutely impossible. In the old days, I think you may remember when you had a flip phone, you got a manual with it. The manual was often bigger than the phone, right?
Right.
Now you get zip, right? You get a phone, it's got some advertising crap in it, and that's about it.
Yes.
They expect you to figure it out yourself. And so, but once you've got the idea, the beauty, one of the other things I should have emphasized that Android does, in the old days when people wrote different programs, every program worked differently. Imagine if you had a car, and some cars had the gears on the left and some had the gears on the right, and some had the key to turn the car on was in the trunk. It would drive you nuts. It'd take you an hour to figure out how to drive a car. Fortunately, all cars pretty much have the key in the same place and the gear in the same place, and the 2 pedals are in the same place, and so on. It's a standard form. So Google Android does that for you. So once you know this kind of stuff, it now will work in just about anything. So when you try some new app out, it may well have that you just scroll to the left and scroll down. One more thing that's come out recently with Google, wasn't available until a year or 2 ago. If you have your home screen, or any screen actually, and you swipe down from the top, so if you put your finger near the top and swipe down, a little menu will pop up with a lot of stuff that's in the settings, where you can change the volume of your ringer, and that's where you turn sideways to get landscape mode and stuff like that. And then if you flick your finger back up, it goes away, right? So you can imagine you can flick left to right to see the different pages, and you also flick from top to bottom and see stuff that's sort of behind the scenes belonging to Android that you might need from time to time, right? For example, I don't know why, they make it really hard normally to see how much battery you've got. And that's the thing we all need all the time, is a stupid battery, right?
Right.
And it's there in a tiny icon, but I don't know about you, my eyes could barely see it, right? But if you swipe down, then it'll open up and it'll show you, it'll say battery is 75% or 12%. If it's 12%, better charge this thing, right? And so you can try it out. Just swipe down and you'll see a bunch of things there. One of which, in fact, happens to be the battery and a few other useful things.
Yeah, this is good.
Well, I'm glad that worked for you.
Thank you. So you mentioned that you were doing like a part 2 of this class.
There are 4 sessions, ma'am.
Okay, and are they all on a Thursday at 10 o'clock?
Yes,
Like,
ma'am.
okay, so when
10
I
to
come
11.
next
10 to
Thursday,
11. Usually we have a whole lot of people on. Most of my classes up to now have had, 10, 12, 15 people on.
okay,
For some reason, everybody's asleep today and haven't got out of bed early. So maybe we should make the courses at 2 in the afternoon to give them time to get out of bed.
right. Awesome, awesome. Well, yeah, this was really good, and I'm going to email you to get the handouts. But I really enjoyed this, so thank you.
Great. I hope you enjoyed it. That more important than enjoying it, I hope it was useful.
Oh yes.
And we will continue next week. I'll revise what we did this time. And again, I said the thing I always suggest is go out and try these things.
Right.
The beauty is you can't hurt yourself.
Right.
This is not like get in your car and you might crash it, right?
Right.
If you get into, first of all, if you get into trouble and you don't know what the heck's going on, just press the home key and you're always home. So you can always find your way home. Yep. Secondly, is you can't hurt yourself. The only way I always say you can hurt yourself with your tablet is if you drop it on your foot. That's the only way you can get it. You can hurt yourself. Other than that, nothing, you may not get the result you want, but it can't do any harm. So I always recommend try these things out, play with it, right? You need to play with it because that's how you learn. And once you've done it a few times, you will find, after a while, all of the things are the same. The apps all work more or less the same, even though they're totally different apps. They have this, we call it the look and feel. The look and feel is the same. Kind of like when you get into a Mercedes or you get into a Chevy or you get into a Ford, behind the wheel, it looks the same, right?
Right.
Leather seats, or it may have a fancier radio, but the steering wheel's in the same place, the gear lever's in the same place, the accelerator's in the same place. You see what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to get in the car and see where the steering wheel is.
Absolutely.
That's what you got to do. So, go play with it. You can get into trouble, but the beauty is you will find that there are a myriad of wonderful things inside your phone and in your tablet. Just a myriad of things. You can't believe how much there is there. And you just got to go look for it. You've got to go find it. You've got to go play with it. You've got to use it. And even now, after all these years, every now and again, I click on something and say, wow, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool, right? It's something new.
Yes.
And it really is very easy to use. There's not much that, that can go wrong. That's the beauty of it. There isn't very much that can go wrong. You can delete an icon accidentally or something, something like that, but nothing disastrous. And very often if you lose things, you say, oh my God, I've deleted my emails. Call me, contact me. In many cases, we can find it again. Nothing is lost on the computer. The computer has a memory like an elephant, as you would expect. And even though you deleted it accidentally, we can probably get it back for you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so very much.
Have a great day. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was good.